Corradino. Um, let's talk about electrical acupuncture, EA. Not many practitioners practice it or use it in their clinic. Please tell us more about it.
Sure. Electroacupuncture. That's a great, first of all, thank you very much, Eli. I really appreciate speaking with you and getting some of this information out to our profession. It's really important. So electroacupuncture, electroacupuncture is, I think, it was a natural evolution to classical acupuncture. It was created and first developed in China, and it was actually first created to replace manual stimulation so the doctors can see multiple patients. Whenever I was in China, whenever I'm in China seeing patients in hospitals, there's patients down the hall in a line. There's a lot of people in China. There's a lot of patients. Their hospitals are enormous. So their doctors are limited by how many patients they can see. But electrical devices actually started to replicate and replace manual stimulation. Then it was quantified, the amount of stimulation, it was controlled, and then it was reproducible. And then they started to use it in research projects. And Dr. Xinghan was the one that produced a lot of work. But before we get to Xinghan, let's just say that electroacupuncture process in China was around, I believe, I think maybe 30s, 40s, and 50s. Okay, that's when it started to come out in China. Xinghan's work, who did a lot of work on endogenous opioid receptor targeting with electroacupuncture frequencies. His work, I believe, was done more in the 70s and 80s and definitely 90s. He was in medical school, I believe, in the 60s. And his work was really groundbreaking, confirming that electroacupuncture has that ability to target the receptors in the nervous system. That's how acupuncture produces its analgesic effects for pain management. He confirmed that. And he named the 3 receptors that he was able to target through electroacupuncture: the mu, kappa, and delta. And then for the mu, we have beta endorphins, kappa, the dynorphins, and delta, the enkephalins. And we can target those separate receptors with specific frequencies. And this was all been confirmed in animals and in human studies. And that's why we use that now. Now, that evolution today, now I went to school, I graduated in the 90s, 95, I was first licensed, and we didn't get any education in electroacupuncture. In fact, it was actually very much backwards, and now looking back, it was inaccurate on a lot of ways. And even today, there's very little really good training in electroacupuncture. They usually still try to mix and sometimes cross it over with the energetic model. And we have a lot of documentation and historical evidence of the energetic model and the history of acupuncture and the Ling Shu. And we make a clear, really understanding of the evolution of medicine, where the energetic model comes from. And it definitely should not be mixed in with electroacupuncture, because all of our devices that we actually use in America that are FDA approved, legally approved, and examined for us to use on patients are actually in the category underneath electroneuromodulation. So that's the actual devices that we're being sold to. And that's what the scientists are telling us, that's what those devices do, because that's what electroacupuncture is doing. It's neuromodulating the nervous system. So what can electroacupuncture do? What we can do is this. First of all, I know there's a lot of machines out there and people can get confused and practitioners can get a little overwhelmed by different machines. In neuropuncture, we use the Pantheon devices. It is a different company from us. I know the honor, John Hubacher, but we have no financial ties. So I don't get anything. I don't promote his products for any financial gain, just because his products are excellent. We've tested them with oscilloscopes. His frequencies are spot on. His waveforms are spot on. His frequencies and currents, everything is just very, very, very accurate. They're microprocessor calibrated. So they're very accurate. So when you put it on, the frequency on 4 hertz, you're getting 4 hertz. Now, what is like 2 hertz, 4 hertz versus 100 hertz? So I'm just going to give you a quick little example because I think this is really, really cool. I'm going to give you 3 nice examples. So let's go 2 hertz, 4 hertz, and 100 hertz. Okay. All right. So 2 hertz, very simple, right? If you use any electroacupuncture machine, you would just put it on like continuous. So it's a continuous frequency. We're using just a single frequency. And that would be a 2 frequency, or 4, or 100. And then you would put it in a millicurrent. There's micro and milli on the pantheons, which gives us a lot of ability to repair tissue damage, reduce inflammation, and really heal soft tissue, which is really nice. And then we have millicurrent, which has a lot of applications for receptor targeting, nerve depolarization, reaching specific regions of the brain, subcortical structures. So we have reasons why we use all that, but that now gets exciting because you get to use and apply those electrical parameters to your clinical practice on how to very delicately and gently neuromodulate your patient's nervous system back to health. So 2 hertz. What would 2 hertz replicate, you think? It's basically going like this. And what that stimulation replicates, you ready for this? Is lifting and thrusting. So lifting and thrusting is what exactly is replicated with 2 hertz millicurrent. 2 hertz millicurrent on almost any classical acupuncture node, whether it be spleen 6, liver 3, Sanyin Jiao, Tai Chong, Hagu, Neiguan, has an amazing impact on the mu receptor and the delta receptor, confirmed. So every time our classical acupuncturists were just performing lifting and thrusting, that's 2 hertz, that signal gets sent along the nervous system, and they were activating the delta receptor and enkephalins in the spinal cord and the mu receptor in the brain for beta endorphins, which helps decrease pain in the body. Now, those endorphins have other impacts on other systems like the endocrine system and the autonomic system as well for temperature regulation and thirst, even in hunger. So those actual neuropeptides that get simply released with lifting and thrusting has a big impact on the system. Now, that's just 2 hertz millicurrent on any nodes on the body, because how the nervous system is wired, that 2 hertz will just run across the neurons and fire those receptors as they pass through them. And 2 hertz does a lot, just lifting and thrusting. Now, what about 4 hertz? So 4 hertz on 2 very particular nodes, which is very exciting. Gallbladder 34 and liver 3. What? Gallbladder 34 and liver 3, 4 hertz millicurrent would replicate what? Maybe a little faster lifting and thrusting, right? Just a little bit faster, right? Not really like, siphoning, right? Nothing like that, nothing real strong, but probably just a little faster lifting and thrusting, okay? Now, what does that do on liver 3 and gallbladder 34? In union together, 4 hertz actually in the brain releases tyrosine hydroxynase. Tyrosine is a precursor of dopamine. Tyrosine hydroxynase will then break down, produce more dopamine. Dopamine will then feed basal ganglia and do what? Stop resting tremors for Parkinson. Why would we use gallbladder 34 and liver 3? Maybe to quell liver wind, which would be a classical point prescription they used many years ago with just a little faster lifting and thrusting. Little did they know they were targeting tyrosine hydroxynase in the brain and helping to produce dopamine, and that was stopping their tremors. And I have videos of this. Immediately, you'll see the Parkinson's tremors start to stop. And that's at 4 hertz because of tyrosine. So that's 2 hertz, mu and delta throughout anywhere on the body. Now you have 4 hertz getting tyrosine for dopamine. 100 hertz. Okay, so at the first neuroscience acupuncture conference that we had in America, we had a practitioner there that trained in China. You might know his master. They made the movie, I think it was called 1,000 Needles with the stroke patients, a classical movie of acupuncture in China being used for stroke patients. A lot of scalp acupuncture. Well, the master only did manual stimulation, and the stimulation was very, very, very advanced. Dexterity of the fingers, right? So it was like a mockingbird or like a hummingbird's wings, right? So it was really fast. And what we actually did was we measured the vibration that he was doing on his hands when he was hitting the needles, and it was about 80 to 100 hertz. So that fast, those types of techniques is basically sending signals down to the neurons and sending those signals to the central nervous system. And that can be all replicated, controlled, then duplicated for other patients and really harness that particular amount of stimulation and definitely researched and measured. So electroacupuncture, I think, and now I believe, I know this for a fact, Google has agreed with this, and AI, if you ask certain questions, will agree as well, that electroacupuncture has been shown to be superior than manual acupuncture, definitely in pain management, but also in neuroplastic changes, creating neuroplastic changes, and for targeting gene expression. So electroacupuncture has kind of been this evolution of acupuncture. It mimics some of the classical acupuncture techniques. It validates some of the classical acupuncture techniques now. And now we can take that and really harness that type of power and apply it to specific nodes to have this absolute reproducible neurophysiological effect on the body. So I love electroacupuncture. It's really amazing. What you think about when your patients come in now is, how am I going to neuromodulate their nervous system back into health? Where is their nervous system pathological? Where is the chi obstructed in their nervous system? You could use those terms. That terms are absolutely still relevant, but I would say just, you want to be mindful of the 21st century medical sciences, but those terms are not, delete. They were observing the same thing we're observing today. They just didn't have the terminology to label it. That's all.
Thank you, Dr. Corradino. This is really just the tip of it, of electroacupuncture and the effects. And this is mostly research that has been done in the past 40 years. But maybe can you give us an example from something maybe that you have researched and discovered?
Wow. Okay. So I'll give you, well, let's do this. There's one, this is great. Neiguan, right? Pericardium 6. Neiguan. How does Neiguan, right? How does this one node happen to affect what? Hiccups, digestive problems, right? Upset stomach, right? Especially moving sickness, motion sickness. It's great for that. It's great for chest pain and palpitations. It's great for shortness of breath. How is this one node able on the peripheral of the arm affect the thoracic cavity and all these internal organs here? And it does. It has a lot of impact. We actually use that with some other conjunction nodes for a hypertension prescription because it targets hypothalamus and regulates hypertension. But how does this here, Neiguan, that particular node, work on heart, lungs, and stomach? Well, it's really neat. It actually, when it's stimulated, it actually has a little pathway that terminates in the brainstem, what we call the cortical nucleus tractus saltaris. And there's these beautiful little tracts in the brainstem. The brainstem governs what? Autonomic functioning. So all autonomic regulation is there. And in that particular area where Neiguan terminates is where the cardiac reflexes are, the GI reflexes are, and the pulmonary reflexes are. So when thousands of years ago, when they were needling Neiguan for chest pain or lung pathology or hiccups and getting results, it was because that pathological signal was getting interrupted in the brainstem where it would have terminated from the organs and then reset them. So that's Neiguan, which is just really cool neuroscience. And we have some great work that we actually published in Neuropuncture for like loss of sense of smell and taste from COVID, tinnitus and hearing loss, all with objective findings. Parkinson's, we have research on major depressive disorder. We're getting work done on PTSD right now, insomnia, neuropathies, and it's all neuropuncture. We're using the Trinity to create prescriptions and all electroacupuncture.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing this information with us.
Thank you so much, Eli.
Can't wait to learn more, to teach myself, and to have you here in Israel this May on the workshop.
Me too. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon, buddy. Thank you.